Welcome everybody to another world building workshop. I'm very excited to have you here this evening because we're going to be talking about sketching a most sinister scene. And I hope that what we talk about tonight is helpful to you because it has definitely been helpful to me as I have prepared writing for horror one-shots and the creepy scenes in general. So sit back, strap in, come on over to YouTube if you have an interest in seeing my notes, and let's get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So you can see I started my notes a little early because I've got a lot to get through, and I'm trying so hard to keep these episodes short. And gosh, dang it, there's just so much to talk about. I can't get enough. So we're talking about sketching a sinister scene. And what this means is not just like, oh yes, you see the horrific villain in front of you, yippee-ki-yay. Like, no, we want to portray the serious crap that your players are in, and we need them to feel that. We want them to experience the despair, if you will, that their players are feeling, because that is the only way that we can really portray how our players are feeling, is if we're able to portray it to the people at our table. And so I have a bag of tools, a bag of tricks here that we're going to bust out, and I really hope that they are helpful to you. So let's talk about the theory really quick. The theory that goes into sketching a most sinister scene. And this, I base all of it around the term, the mise en scene. Ooh, we're getting fancy, busting out other languages. The mise en scene is, first and foremost, above all else, environmental storytelling. That's all that it is. It's a fancy way of saying using your surroundings to tell a story. And that is especially important in horror, because the environment that your players are in is so much of what makes things horrifying. Especially when, let's think about cinema for a moment. When we think about cinema, you spend 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half. A lot of horror movies are a little shorter. There's only so much story to tell here. The bad guy's after you at the end. But so much of the movie you spend not even seeing the bad guy. It's not the 5-minute encounter with the villain at the end of the movie. It's the hour and 15 minutes of build up to getting to that point. And that is exactly what mise en scene is. It's that environmental storytelling using the setting. Remember the sinister scene that we're sketching together this evening. Using that mise en scene to portray a story to your players so that when you do reveal the villain, it isn't just like oh hey, I found the bad guy, golly gee, what are we gonna do, kids? It's, oh man, it's a climactic moment. After 3 hours of storytelling at the table together, finally you're facing this implacable foe that has been haunting you all evening. And that's the glorious part of horror, the thriller, the intensity of that moment. And so I just have like a list of things that are useful when we're thinking about mise en scene, things that are going to help you. And regrettably, I haven't really broken down like a great way to just digest this. So I'm just gonna like toss like sentences at you guys, and I hope that one of them sticks. And if you need help remembering, please follow the link in my bio, or my story for that matter. Come on over to YouTube. Here we go. All right. The first thing that we need to recall whenever we're writing or making horror is we need to start by deny the confidence. Let's hold that down. Confidence in details. Deny confidence in detail. And what does that mean? That means that you don't know. You just don't know. Ooh, Carlos. Carlos on YouTube says, hello, so glad to see you again, and thank you for today's workshop. I'll definitely need it since I'm writing my session for tomorrow's club meeting. Yes, Carlos. Spread the good word. Keep up the good work. I'm also pretty pumped since today is my birthday. Double whammy. Carlos is hanging with us on his birthday. Everyone wish Carlos a happy birthday in the chat. Thanks, man, for hanging out. Hopefully, one of these things will be especially useful to you tonight. So, deny confidence in details. That means we can use the fog of war. We need to use the fog of war. Anything that we can do to create uncertainty, right? That's what we're looking for. That's the word we're looking for. We need to create uncertainty. However we do that, we can do that with 90-degree turns in hallways. So the long, narrow hallway is a great storytelling plot device, but it's not knowing what's around that 90-degree turn. It's knowing that, I can move 30 feet on my turn, but that will take me to around the corner, right? It will take me to the edge here. I know that 30 feet will take me to right here. Do I want to put myself out there to potentially have to deal with that for a round of initiative while everyone catches up, sort of thing? And so it's creating the do I want to, I don't know. Another way that we can do that, let's put this in the notes. 90-degree turns. Any sort of darkness. Of course, you'll get the player who's like, I've got devil sight. Well, that's great. But there's some particular aspect of this, and we can use darkness as kind of metaphorical, right? There could be something else, the fog of war, obscuring your vision somehow. So the fog is a great way to do that. So many scary movies have, things lurking in the dark in the fog because we can't see what's there, and it's the uncertainty. That's what creates the thrill for us as humans. Not knowing. That's the juicy goodness that we can't help but cling to. So the fog, and then of course we can use doors. Closed doors is another great way to do that. It's a great tool that we have at our disposal. We can put a door literally anywhere, and that provides us the opportunity to close off or make it uncertain as to what's on the other side. And then you add in a little bit of noise there, and you hear screams coming from the other side of the door, and suddenly, oh my goodness, what could it be? And it's nothing. You go through the door, and it seems that it was just sounds, which leads us directly into the next part. Not only should we be denying confidence in the details, horror exists in the contrast between normal versus not normal or abnormal. Okay. That is where the really juicy horror takes place. Because in your normal mind, you would have perceived, there's going to be someone that needs help. There's going to be someone that needs something on the other side of this door. And you burst through the door, and there's nothing there. And that's the spooky moment for your players. We're like, okay, like the funk is going on. Like there's definitely something afoot here. Okay, we get it. Which leads us into this is a great tool. This is a straight up tool that I use. So let's write the contrast here. Create contrast. Okay. Things that are not normal make for great horror fuel. Right? That's what makes it horror. It's not normal. Things don't do that. Right? Why is the blood running up the walls? Gee, it's horror. Ka-chow. Like, okay, I get it, right? Why are there bugs like emerging from his just now wound? Like, okay, it's horror, right? We're getting into some eldritch nonsense here. I guess that's the new normal. And that's where that contrast, that is where the creepy lies. And so use that contrast. Which led me into, I've lost it. Oh, well, not a big deal. Oh, yes. So whenever we're describing all of this, we need to be describing two things that our players perceive and one thing that our players can insight. And we should just be handing that to our players. Don't make them roll for it. Just hand that to them. Humanity elves, dwarves, whatever, sentient beings have gotten to the point that they're at because they were able to perceive danger. We've got a sixth sense, like not just like the M. Night Shyamalan sixth sense, like a legitimate, like the creepies are like, you can feel it. You can feel the heebie-jeebies. You know, your body knows, and that is just ingrained in you through years and years and millennia of evolution. Humanity has evolved to survive, and that is an aspect of our survival. There's no reason they, as players at your table, shouldn't be experiencing the same things. We just have to be particular about how we give that to them, because we can give them two things that that their characters would perceive, and one thing that they would insight. So the way I would describe this is, as you walk into the room, right? Yes, we've walked into the room, right? You would note instantly that blood seems to be running up the walls. Okay, that's one thing that they see, all right? Let's give them another sense, right? Let's give them a smell. And you can smell the malodorous scent of bile, which is a very distinct scent that everyone actually is familiar with. And like, that's definitely going to be on like the not normal list. Like, okay, wait, like blood's running up the walls. It smells like bile. And now we need to give them one thing that they insight. And I would describe your insight here as the vibe check of the room, the mood, the atmosphere, right? Remember, this is all leading us to the mise-en-scene, that environmental storytelling. We're telling a story with what they're feeling right now. And as you step into the room, it feels like there are thousands of people watching you. Oh, like, wait, are there people watching? Nope, other than the blood running up the walls, there's, some various furnishings, very normal. It smells like bile, and it feels like you're standing in front of a crowd, hundreds and thousands of eyes watching you. Super creepy vibes, right? Awesome. All right, I've missed some stuff in the chat here. Nathan says, so many DMs forget that they can just give players tools to play well. Yeah, we don't have to depend on rolls or passive perception or insight, right? We just exist. And I can tell you, there are some people that don't passively perceive well, and there are others that passively perceive all right. But in this environment, right, you are definitely, senses are heightened. Your adrenaline would be pumping. You would notice a lot. And then you could also say you might miss a lot too. So I like to give them this much, two things they perceive, and one thing they insight, and then have them roll, right? And then have them roll. And that's the point where I would drop a secret on them. And if you want to talk about secrets, go check out my Back to the Basics videos. There's a whole playlist on YouTube, so check out how we use secrets and special situations like that. But continuing on. So for the sake of time, goodness gracious, it moves quickly. For the sake of time, we're going to move past the theory now, and it's time to talk about, okay, this is all well and good. I've given you a little bit of how we can put this into practice. Let's talk about like the practical aspects of furnishing a sinister scene. The first thing that we can consider here when we are creating, let's say, a dungeon or whatever our horror scene is, let's actually ask the chats. YouTube, Instagram, what is your favorite horror environment? What's a movie or a book that you've experienced that just stood out to you as like, oh man, that was just a juicy scene, right? Whether it's, I know for a lot of people, one of the first ones that come to mind is like the hotel in The Shining, right? All sorts of creepy funkiness in that psychological thriller. I know for some, one of the first things that popped into my mind, I know it's not, I wouldn't outrightly describe it as horror, but it's still a thriller. It still fits in the thriller genre, is Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is at its core a thriller. The horror is they're monsters. So dinosaurs fill the role of the monster character in any horror, and the relentlessness of being hunted by velociraptors or the Tyrannosaurus Rex are especially vivid and really fun, and it's all kind of cloaked in this fun kind of adventure theme story. But at the end of the day, Jurassic Park's still a thriller, and I think it's a really good example of how we can use the setting. But if we don't so Carlos says The Shining really stands out as a top horror movie, right? And I think just for the sake of ease and because I was already thinking about it, I'm going to use examples from Jurassic Park to portray how we can use this practically in creating our scene, right? So whenever we are creating our horrifying scene, let's see here. I need to be in kind of this ballpark, so I'm not up in the chat. Whenever we're creating our horrifying scene, our dungeon or our environment, our encounter needs a connecting feature. A connecting feature. What does that mean? That means that we can't be railroading our players. Because if in an environment you start to railroad your players, hope will be lost instantly. Because you have taken away the agency of your players, and therefore they have just decided they're going to assume hopelessness and helplessness, and it loses fun. You lose investment, you lose engagement to your one shot. So we need to make sure that there are multiple dimensions for our players to move through. And so if you're in a dungeon environment, being hunted in a dungeon, there needs to be tunnels, rivers, okay, a courtyard, something that can be moved through. Okay, courtyard, rivers, tunnels, literally anything that will provide you the opportunity to go from A to B in multiple ways. Okay, that way your players never feel like they are locked into one route because, oh yeah, of course the monster is going to get us. We have to go this way. Well, you've just taught them hopelessness and helplessness and like, okay, this isn't fun anymore. We're on a railroad. It doesn't matter what the encounter is anymore because they've lost agency. They've lost the ability to decide. And whether or not they think that they are going somewhere else, here's the trick, everybody. They can always end up at B. So you've given them the illusion of choices. Oh yeah, there's 4 hallways. What direction would you like to go? Oh, excellent. You've arrived at B. And then once they do that, the place that you needed them to go, you can turn these into whatever you need to. A dead end, an empty classroom, a barracks, a kitchen, whatever. Something that will dead end so that it provides them the illusion that, well, we just chose correctly the first time. I guess we're going to go back to that other room. But you've given them what you needed them to have, regardless of if that was actually a railroad or not. Just a small little tool there. Number 2, we need to show the goal. Okay? And that in horror can usually be pretty straightforward. Show the goal. Because for a lot of horror, it is either find the baddie or escape the baddie. That's usually what it boils down to. And that's it. And that's okay. That's all that it has to be. It's horror. The thrill isn't in necessarily the goal. It's in the achieving the goal, right? It's in all of the things that we have to do to make our evening what we'll call goal-centric, okay? It is, we'll go to Jurassic Park then because I mentioned it earlier, right? Connecting feature, right? We have the illusion of, well, we have to stay in the car. We have to stay in the car, and they stay in the car, and then cars get knocked off rails and things happen, and then suddenly they're on a grand adventure across the dinosaur park. Okay, that is, talk about you are no longer railroaded, right? They were railroaded, they had their close encounter, and then they could go any number of directions. Now, show the goal. We know what the goal is. We need to get to everybody else. We need to get to the visitor center, okay? And we know where we need to go and what direction we need to go. So everything that we need to be doing up to this point, goal-centric. So we need to get over this electrified fence. We need to get past these velociraptors. I think that the better situation here that we can look at is the female doctor. I can't remember anyone's names in this movie, but the female doctor goes with the hunter, and they have to find a way to turn the power back on. And there comes a moment where they're walking through the forest, and the hunter says, "We're being hunted." And he gets ready to go into like combat mode. It says, "When I tell you, you need to run," and I mean run. And like it's a whole thing, and it's a fun. Okay, turn the power back on. That is one step necessary to protecting the survival aspect of that thriller. Keep the dinosaurs out. We need the power back on, right? So it's just anything. This could be a door that we have to get through, and this could be collect the keys in the dungeon to do that. The applications are universal. It's just how we choose to apply them. And then, of course, in between our encounters, we need the puzzle encounter. And the puzzle encounter is especially rich in horror and thrillers. Because what the puzzle encounter does is it provides that little bit of role play that you probably don't get very often in a horror one-shot. Like, where is the opportunity to role play? How many NPCs are there kicking around? We're not doing a shopping trip. Like, this is an action-packed, let's get the job done one-shot, right? We've got 3.5 hours to knock this out. Let's go. We don't have time for shopping trip role play. So the role play has to happen in between the players. The players have to be the ones role playing here. And the great opportunity to do that comes in the form of puzzles, providing them with a problem that does not have an obvious solution. So without an obvious solution. This is what I would call OSR puzzles, or old school revival puzzles, or Renaissance puzzles. Obvious solution. And these are essential in any game that you play. Stop giving your players Denny's menu riddles. Just stop, please. For the love of all that is holy, please stop giving your players Denny's menu riddles. Give them a problem that they have to work together to solve. For instance, turn the power back on. Okay, I'm going to distract the bad guy. You run. There it is. That's the puzzle, and the role play that happens there. Like, oh, I don't want to leave you behind. Like, no, go. Like, this will be like my sacrifice for you. Like, do the things. Like, I can take the villain or whatever. Like, this will be my moment. And like the role play that can happen there between your players is juicy and gold and easily accessible because you provided them that problem for them to role play around. So, all of this. What this boils down to, when we apply these practical aspects to the theory of a sinister setting, it really drives home and makes it memorable and engaging. That's the whole why here, right? You've made this, you've made a cool bad guy. Now you've got this great scene. Next week we're going to be talking about the plot. The things that are necessary to get our players down the road to actually make all of this happen. So, we didn't have much interaction tonight, but that's okay. Everybody is doing their thing. It's busy. We're getting into busy season, so everyone's got their stuff. Especially you, Carlos. You need to go have a great birthday. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Please don't forget, like, follow, subscribe, all of the things. Please check out my channel. If you're here on YouTube, check out my Instagram for all of the RPG humor and help that I can possibly muster. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to one thing and one point. I hope that you have fun. I hope that this helps. And as always, take care of your players.